Hello Full House faithful, and welcome back to another video. You saw the title. Today, we are talking about the possibility of a sequel series to our favorite sequel series that's a sequel to our favorite series, Fullest House. Will there be a Fullest House? Well, it's uncertain. As of me recording this, Fuller House has just reached the end of its 5-season run a few weeks ago, and between then and now, it's been revealed that the creators behind the show were hoping for a season 6. So right off the bat, that tells us that it seems like Netflix, for some reason, doesn't even want Fuller House anymore, at least for now, which is a real shame. But there is still hope that the Tanners, Fullers, and Gibblers could return one day. Case in point, John Stamos pitched the idea of a Full House sequel series to different networks for years before Netflix picked it up. So even though the show is gone now, maybe, just like back then, it's just a matter of time and persistence before we get some more Tanner, Fuller, and Gibbler adventures. Maybe we just need to be patient, and in 15 or 20 years when the time is right, like it was when Fuller House got picked up by Netflix, we will get a Fullest House. And it's more likely than you think, because everyone is on board for it to happen, from the cast to the producers to, obviously, us. It's just a matter of it being at the right place, at the right time, to bring the show back. On top of that, there's now a little bit of a generational sort of precedent set by Full and Fuller House, how it will return after a few decades, so we're already starting off in a much better place than most other TV shows that want revivals, since there's actually a desire for it to happen. So when would it happen? I joked around in my review for the final set of Fuller House episodes and said that 2041 would be the release date, and I just got that number from taking the gap between Full House ending and Fuller House starting, 21 years. And then I just added it to Fuller House ending to get 2041. I may have been joking about the year itself, but the time frame totally makes sense, because you have to wait a while for the child actors to grow up into adults. That will give them a chance to be old enough to have kids and have it make sense why they're living alone in the house, again, without DJ, Steph, Kimmy, Steve, Jimmy, or Fernando. The earliest, in my mind at least, that you could even have Fullest House start up would be in 2030, because that would place Jackson and Ramona right around 27, 28, which is just a few years shy of Danny and Joey, and right around Jesse's age at the start of Full House. Ideally though, I think the sweet spot would be if it premiered closer to the mid-2030s, because then you could have Max be a bit older too, and it gives you a ton of options for diverse stories to tell and a ton of ways to set the series itself up, since that would mean Jackson and Ramona would be in their early to mid-30s, Max would be in his mid to late 20s, baby Tommy would now be in his early 20s, and Danielle would be, if my math is right, her mid to late teenage years. So from here, you could have the setup of the main cast configured in a bunch of different ways, depending on who wants to be a series regular. But my best guess is that they'd probably start off with a traditional setup where we would see Max, Jackson, and Ramona moving into the house. I think it would mainly be those three, and whatever kids they have, living in the house, with Tommy, Danny, and all of the legacy Full and Fuller House characters showing up for cameos. And then maybe later seasons could introduce Tommy moving into the house to be closer to work, or Danielle moving into the house because it's closer to her college, or something to that effect. Because then, the show could have an element that neither Full or Fuller House had. 3 generations living in the house at the same time, split between Jackson, Ramona, and Max, Danielle, and then the new cast of kid characters. And I think that could make for a really interesting dynamic, just to give it a little bit of a different flavor than Full and Fuller House offered. I would also love to see a return to a focus on equally splitting the time between the kids and the adults in the house, because as much as I love Fuller House, I thought that the kids didn't get a ton to do when in Full House, DJ, Steph, and Michelle carried half of the show on their backs. To the naysayers who say this show could never happen, can't work, and believe that Fuller House was nothing more than a nostalgia trip and there's nothing to really build off of, I'd like to respectfully disagree. If the writers really can't figure out how to carry on the legacy in a meaningful way, they could make the show less reliant on cameos of the legacy characters and callbacks to iconic moments. I mean, Full House didn't have that luxury, and it's still so beloved. They're free to make it their own thing if they want to. a hypothetical Fullest House, its connection to its past 13 seasons of television is almost meaningless. As long as the show is entertaining on its own terms and people like it, that's really all that matters. So where does that leave us? Is there anything that we could do to increase the chances of this show happening? It's not a sure thing, but as far as I could see, it could only help our chances. If over these next 10, 15, even 20 years, as long as there's no new Fuller House or Fullest House episodes being produced, if we just show our love and appreciation on the internet, on social media, and show that there is a genuine interest to see more of the Tanner, Fuller, Gibbler family saga, I feel like some network or streaming service would have to take notice and at least give Fullest House a shot. But what do you think? Do you think there'll be a Fullest House? What would you like to see if they made it? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section and we could all talk it out. I'm loving the positivity and respectful conversations going on down there for the past few Full House videos. There have been some really interesting points made and cool discussions going on. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful day. Be